day about this time, we like to open up the Bible app and give it a look and just see what the Word of God has for us each and every day. So today is the book of Isaiah, and the book of Isaiah says, like a shepherd he will tend his flock, and it says in his arm he will gather the lambs, right, and carry them in his bosom. He will gently lead the nursing ewes. That's Isaiah 40:11. You know, have you ever wondered, like, or has it ever looked to you or occurred to you that it seems like the God of the Old Testament is so different than the God of the New Testament? A lot of people say that. A lot of people say that, like, the God of the Old Testament seems to be kind of angry, wrathful, vengeful, you know, mad. And then the God of the New Testament seems to be happy and joyful, and loving and friendly, you know. But here's a fact, you know. God is the same, has always been the same. He hasn't changed at all. What's different is our relationship with him has changed over those thousands of years. The way in which we are able to approach him and know him has changed. And I think that when God, you know, created, like, especially for us, like in our culture, the God who created those you got in trouble, we're a people who have, for whatever reason, when and so I think the God of the Old Testament, who does nothing more than what he says he's going to do, you know, the actions that he takes sometimes really blows our mind, I think, and it keeps us from, and it does kind of give that persona of a God who is vengeful or mad and angry. But we have to understand that, like, when God created the law, the motivation of that law was for love. The reason for the rules is so that he could have a relationship with us, because there had to be some type of way for man to have a relationship with him. I saw it the other day. I was at church, and the guy talking said he had a Bible in his hand, and he held it up in front of like the class, you know, and he held it open, and then he took it. He took the very first page of Genesis, and he kind of put his fingers on that and held it up in the air, you know, like this. He goes, right here, guys. He said, this is the beginning. And he said, and the Bible, with all of its, depending how many pages yours has, you know, but thousands of scriptures, he said it took this long, that one page, for man to fall. And the rest of the book is about God redeeming him, about God restoring that relationship and that fellowship with man. And you know, it's true. And so this God whom we know now in Jesus, in privilege, you and I are the benefactors. We are the heirs. We're the ones who really get to see and understand and experience the God who truly does love his children. He certainly does. You know, it says he talks about the shepherd, and that's God. He's going to tend the flock. He calls us, in this context, it calls us ewes, like baby lambs, and he's going to lead he's going to lead them and guide them, and coddle them and carry them. And this is like Old Testament stuff, though, because, you know, a lot of people didn't see God like that. They didn't see God in that light. A lot of people now don't see God in that light. They don't see him in that light. But, you know, and I know the reason why is because we kind of look at the actions of God a lot in which we don't understand of the Old Testament, like when he would wipe out people or tell, Joshua kill everybody, kill every man, woman, child, and every animal. Like, when you go in to take over a place or a city or whatever, a lot of that we don't understand as far as like comprehend it, like how that can be part of a loving God's plan. And I don't judge it at all. It's just the way it is. But that same God is the same God who like emphatically loves us. The fervor and zeal in which God approached and had his people approach those who stood in his way of his people, like it led to like death, like killing them, because of God's intense love for his people, and God's intense love for you and me. So, I guess today's, the big deal today is I think about like, the way in which this describes God. It's like him carrying us when we don't even know we need carrying. That even though sometimes we might think we're all mature and holy and like we have it all together, we don't. But yet Jesus, through the power of the Holy Spirit, Jesus, God, all those are the three are the same. He carries us. He loves us. He sustains you. I know that like having children when they were little, 5 or 6 years old, they would always try to act more grown up than what they were. It was kind of funny watching them do things, and sometimes they would say things that were so funny, and sometimes, like, depending on the character traits of your child, like some of them are like hyper crazy, talk all the time. Some are kind of chill and cool or whatever. They all have a different personality. But I don't know how many times the day would be over, and my wife and I watching TV or something, and that kid is laying there on the couch or in the chair, and they have fallen asleep like an hour ago because they're worn out. And one of the things that, when they're little like that, it was my job to always carry them to bed. Oh man, carry them to bed. Now, one of the labors of love in carrying a kid to bed is to carry them especially if you had more than one, carry them all the way up those steps. Now the truth is, would they have been okay? Would they have been fine? Sleeping on that couch or in that chair? Would anything bad happen to them? Not at all. They'd have probably slept great. But at that age, if they were to wake up in that chair or that couch, like in the living room or wherever we were, they would probably be terrified when they woke up because they would be disoriented and they wouldn't know what's going on, right? What's going on? So, because of the compassionate care, you carry them, and that's the gentleness and love that's being shown here. And it's probably more important, as far as like more impressive to the people who are hearing this for the first time than you and I, because you and I have experienced Jesus in this way. I hope you have. But he cares for you that much. And so if you ever feel like I'm not important to God, you can see here, even in Isaiah, even back in the Old Testament here in Isaiah, it tells us how important we are. That he cares for us the same way a shepherd would care for a brand new, like, born lamb. Like, in just every way, take care of every need. That God's motivation for everything that he has done, from creation until now, and for the future, is because of his love for you and the value that God has placed on you because he's chosen to do that. You are that important to God. You are valuable. You are important. You are what He's made you out to be. And yeah, if you ever wonder and think, well, maybe I'm not as valuable as someone else. I know you may feel that way because, again, oftentimes we look at people's actions and like their attributes and their accolades and the attention they get, whatever, in other Christians. But know this, if God is the one who's placed value on you, then you're priceless. You understand? Because to say I'm not as valuable as someone else, on the surface may sound like a humble disposition. But actually it's a very arrogant and prideful disposition to say that. Because you're saying your value, if you say, well, I'm not as valuable as someone else, you are then saying that the value that you are to God has something to do with you. You see? If I say, well, I know we're all important to God, but some are more important than others, and I'm just not as important. When you say that, you're talking out of the assumption that something you do, or your behavior, or your actions, or your giftings has something to do with how valuable you are, which in turn is a very prideful, arrogant characteristic or way to think. Because the value that you have, the value that you have to God has nothing to do with what you can or can't do or have not done. It has to do with the fact that He's the one who placed that value on you. He's the one who chose to love you. He's the one who makes you important. So if God is the one doing all of that and you're doing nothing, then there's no possible way that you can be less valuable than someone else, because God is the one creating the value system. He's the one placing that on you and loving you for where you are and who you are as you are. And that's something to think about and to remember. And to remind yourself when maybe you feel down or you feel forgotten or you feel that or maybe God's angry at you. I don't know. People feel different things towards God. But we just have to be reminded of a truth like this one in Isaiah that shows the care and the love that God has for us, and the importance and the value He places on us, just like a shepherd does that newborn lamb, and will go to every effort to take care of that lamb. And that's what God's doing for you. And it's nothing we do, It's nothing we do. It's who He is and what He has done. And He's done that through Jesus. You see, He has shown you how valuable you are by taking perfection, right? By taking Jesus and devaluing Him to the point He couldn't look at Him, so that you and I could be valuable and to have that relationship with Him restored and have a relationship with Him that will last to eternity. There's a whole lot in there. But I guess that's it for now. I hope you guys have a good one, and we will talk to you soon.